A big part of successfully shifting into the reality of your dreams or manifesting the reality of your dreams is the reality selection process. And what that means is mastering how you decide amongst several different options. We've discussed a little bit about this, about alignment and understanding your value system and breaking your patterns and transcending. But tonight we're going to talk about something a little different. One of the key ways to tell if you are going in the right direction or an optimal direction. Let's break away from right and wrong. Optimal can have varying degrees. Like, let's say, the time that you arrive to a party. You might arrive an hour early, an hour late, right on time, and each friend is going to have a different barometer, as well as cultures will have a different barometer for what is optimal. It doesn't mean that if you show up a little bit before, a little bit after, that it's wrong. It just means that there is a sweet spot. So reality selecting is sort of like finding that sweet spot of the optimal choice for you. And sometimes we can get caught in the mind and think a lot about how something looks on paper, or decision A versus B versus C, and weighing the pros and the cons. And I find that one of the best methods to use is the expansion threshold method. This is something that I'm naming tonight. It's a process that I have been utilizing in my own life that I find to be incredibly effective, because almost nothing else really matters. It is how free you feel, how expanded you feel as a person, as a being, as a conscious creator. Do you feel constrained, heavily criticized or judged, or people saying you can be good but not too good? Like bosses, some bosses are like that. I hate to say it, it's true. And it's just true, especially if they haven't done any personal work. And I can sugarcoat it for you, and I'm not going to. There are people that haven't done the work, and you can tell. Legit, you can actually tell. Because particularly if you're still in your 20s, even your 30s, and there is a big age gap in your boss or your leadership team, what you'll find is that they'll be threatened just because you're younger, or they perceive you to be less experienced. And so as a result, you'll speak up in meetings, or you'll speak up on projects, and you'll get shot down arbitrarily. And you'll feel it, your intuition will feel it, and it is somebody needs this. So, if this doesn't relate to you, just hang on. Your goal is to hold on to that strength of self, to recognize your good ideas that are game-changing good ideas, and to recognize when you're sitting across from somebody at that mahogany table with gray hair and chiseled lines on their face and an ego that is bigger than their britches. Your job is to recognize that it is them who hasn't done the personal work. They have not done the personal work. And the mere existence of you threatens their own feelings of superiority. So as a result, you may be punished or sidestepped or given side eye or shot down, or people take your ideas. Now, your goal is to realize that that is not a place of expansion. That may not be a place to stay and fight unless you're up for that fight. So now backing up to when you made that decision, and now for everybody else, think about a time that you didn't feel appreciated or seen. Could be in relationships, partnerships, and think about that feeling of having to be in a box or having to be smaller than what you want to be. Sometimes people can't sing because they're afraid that their singing for those around them will make others feel insecure. This is so real. Sometimes people can't really be as good as they want to be in art or in whatever their talent is, right? Without fearing that other people are going to be rubbed the wrong way, particularly those that are loved ones. This is a form of constraint. And this is the path that leads to significant unhappiness in life. I'm saving you years here. I'm serious. When you recognize this pattern, it will literally change your life overnight when you start deciding to go towards expansion, to go towards opportunities where you feel like your fire, and your fire, your bonfire, everybody loves, and nobody is jealous or trying to tear you down or whatever it is that humans do when they're in their shadow elements and deeply threatened and insecure by you fire walking into a room and just being yourself. And too many times we actually dampen our light because we're afraid of making people feel a certain way. And I see this in romantic partnerships too. It's like one partner will be very exuberant and have so much life and so much energy, and that's what attracts this other partner who may be more of like a, wallflower type. I like the wallflowers too. I like all types of people. The wallflowers are very interesting. They're quiet. You have to like kind of probe and get to know them and figure out like what their secrets are. So there's no like dismissiveness when I talk about this difference. But what happens is that when that wallflower is actually paired with the exuberant bonfire, flirtatious energy that's dancing around the room, what can happen is that they actually can feel really insecure, and they can want to possess that exuberant energy. You see how this plays out? And so then there can be fights related to this. Even if there's not explicit fights, there can be implicit demands and expectations. And if it veers into the toxic and the abusive, then watch out. That's a bad combination. And it can go the other way around too. And so what can happen is that the person with the opposing complementary energy can dampen the light and the enthusiasm and the energy and the exuberance of the other partner. And this is a form of oppression. It's not set out to be that way. This is like the shadow patterns. And so that is not a path of expansion, but it is a wonderful karmic lesson for you learning how to be strong in yourself with a partner that is insecure, that is trying to possess you, that is trying to change you, that is trying to make you less so they feel better. Another way this plays out is, I actually had this happen to me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on? Have you done any personal work? They had, but not for this pattern. And it's always illuminating when, we get into partnerships and then we realize like what patterns are still active. And so this person really respected my intelligence, and I saw them as very intelligent too, but they weren't educated. They had a problem with that. I did not. Often I find that people who are uneducated have a fear about not being smart enough, even though they might be the most well-read person that I've ever spoken to on a particular subject. It's like they don't see that themselves, and they're still holding this wound of what society expects from them. And so then they give that to me as like a perceptual experience that they're projecting onto me, that they judge themselves through my quote supposed eyes, which doesn't actually happen. And there is a form that it can happen, but it's like if they don't demonstrate critical thinking, then I start to get frustrated. And that's when I start to feel like there's too much of a disconnect. But it's not about education, it's like, it's about the thought patterns. And this particular person was brilliant, actually, and was gifted, but they didn't fit into the traditional school system. And they had many talents, but they didn't believe in themselves. And so when we got together, what initially attracted them was that I was very intelligent. But then, because of this underlying insecurity that they had, this actually was turned against me because I ended up making them feel that insecurity that they were holding on to, that they didn't realize that they were holding on to, about society standards and what it means to be an intelligent person in society that they grew up from. And even though I tried to communicate with them about this and reassure them that the judgment was not coming from me, they didn't believe it. And so then towards the end, they started going out of their way to tear me down, to actually tear me down. And that's when I started walking away. I was like, this is unacceptable. Unacceptable, So what happens is that these wounds that we all have our own unique pattern of wounding. And some people have gone through their wounds and other people have not. And then there are others that are actively working on them. And the goal is not to pretend like everybody's healed and that we're all above being triggered, because that's silly. That's like bypassing. That's what spiritual bypassing is like when you pretend to yourself and you kind of like lie to yourself. You're like, no, I'm healed. Yeah. No, you're just not challenging yourself to reveal the fact that you still have wounds, right? But people can be healed. I'm not saying that people can't be healed. I'm talking about very, very particular types of people that don't do the shadow work because they claim that they're healed. And so all they do is they bury it. They just bury it. And then it still comes out. It always comes out. It just comes out in a passive aggressive way. It comes out behind the scenes. It comes out in manipulation, in gossip, in triangulation, in codependent patterns, in oppressive patterns, in sometimes violence or abusive patterns, in like really, really tough cases. And so it's really important that when we talk about expansion and we talk about healing the self, that both can coexist at the same time. And you can be a work in progress and still be your higher self. Ding, 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 ding. You can be a work in progress and still be your higher self. So we don't want to get caught in the cycle that I'm broken, I'm less than, I can't be who I'm supposed to be. No, you take your work in progress template, personality template, and cognitive template. You take that with you and you port it into the future. And you work with the patterns that are unique to your specific archetype. And you keep growing that's the whole point of expansion, is that you're always growing, you're always expanding and coming online more and more and more. I call back to that mosaic description, and I remind you that part of the journey is taking your unique mosaic and lighting up all of the little segments of colors as you start to embark on your awakening journey, your consciousness expansion journey, your reality shifting journey. These are all little quadrants of the mosaic. And then you have aspects of your personality, and you have aspects of your emotionality, you have aspects of your embodiment. That's what I'm working on now, is my embodiment. And so all of these different facets create the unique picture of you. And just because you're still working on things doesn't mean that you're a broken human being. It doesn't mean that you're in your lower self, although some people are some people legitimately are. It means that you're on the path of expansion. And so the mosaic then is like boom, 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 lighting up as you are aggregating the lessons and the understanding and then putting that into practice. So when you get to the reality selection moment and you have, let's say, 3 opportunities in front of you, it could be dating, it could be work, it could be partnerships, collaborations, it could be destiny paths. If you are trying to focus on one, let's say, you don't have to, but if you're trying to prioritize and focus your energy, then do an assessment of how expanded you feel and check in with yourself. How does it feel when you talk to that person? How does it feel when you receive a text from them? How does it feel when you feel their energy? How does it feel when you walk into that office? How does it feel when you drive, if you're commuting, if you drive to the building? Because that matters. And oftentimes our body and our intuition will have a subtle feeling. Like, for example, I remember when I was in Costa Rica and I was finishing up a lifeline and going back to a place. This was on the mountain. I talked about it in one of my episodes, the Eden place, and I was going back there. The first time I went, it was very magical and very expansive. The second time I went, as soon as the car was pulling up to the driveway, I had this feeling. I was like, oh my God. Oof. That is the feeling that is not expansion. Right? So those are the feelings that you're looking out for. And it can be very subtle. You have to tune into it. It might just be on the order of a second. That's kind of like, I don't know. Not sure about that one. That is an indication that it may not be the right fit or the right time to really pursue that opportunity. It could be that you want to hold on to the potential. That's okay, right? But energetically, you want to feel the vibe. You want to feel the sense of expansion. You want to feel like a lift, a resonance that takes you to the moon, or that allows for your divine self to sort of like stretch out of your human skin just for a moment and to breathe, like to actually really breathe. If you feel like it's hard to catch your breath, if you feel any sort of negative anxiety, and I don't mean the butterflies anxiety, or, feeling terrified. Terrified is a great one because it indicates that you're moving into the unknown and that you are, in fact, on the path of expansion because you're pushing yourself beyond what you thought was possible and you don't know how it's going to turn out. So feeling apprehensive and terrified, the good kind, not like the fear kind. Somebody, is going to hurt you, or not like the survival terrified, but like the oh my God, can I really do it? I'm not sure. Is this really the right idea? I've never done this before. It feels like it could be right, but I'm scared because I don't know how it's going to turn out. But I really feel like it. That's how I felt before I started making content and started opening up about my story. It was the best decision, absolutely the best decision. And so being terrified is a great indication of expansion. But when you start veering into the negative forms of anxiety, the negative forms of fear, that's when you should reconsider, because that's not a path of expansion. And if you're not excited to get out of bed and do the thing, if you're not like vroom, with enthusiasm or energy, if you're just like, yes, I pace well. Yeah, no, we have a great time together. Yeah. Then if it's not like a full body F yes, it's a no. It's a no. And so when you follow the method of expansion, really sitting with how expanded you feel, does your voice open up, or are you meek? Are you quiet? Or are you assertive and strong and full? You see? Are you expressive? Can you access your emotions? Or are you cut off from them? These are all the things that you can analyze for your particular situation. So I hope this helps, and we'll talk soon. And if you happen to be interested in reality shifting coaching or shadow work and finding your maximum path of expansion, you can feel free to email me at sacredjourneyproductions@gmail.com.